Hey, Margie here. I just love the word vitality. It's so positive and it's something all of us want to have more of in our lives. Well, today we're going to talk about how we can do that. And our special guest is Meredith Oppenheim. Meredith is the founder and CEO of Vitality Society, an online community designed to enrich, engage, and empower people 60 and better to remain at their best. The transformative platform, which has been featured in the New York Times, Forbes, Harvard Business School Bulletin, and Thrive Global, as well as on ABC, Fox, and NBC, has been referred to as a lifeline and a game changer for physical and mental well being. Meredith has created a vitality focused service and experience centered around prevention, which attracts subscribers who participate on an average 5 hours per week to stay connected and well. She served on Mayor Bloomberg's Age Friendly New York City Commission and the New York City Department for Aging board during her decades as an executive in the senior housing industry. Meredith is a U.S. Congressional Award winner for her service to seniors and graduate of the Harvard Business School and Cornell University. In October 2022, she was featured in Entrepreneur Magazine and selected as a 2023 SXSW panelist. And I've known Meredith for quite a long time, and we're really going to talk about what things she has seen in her society that has really helped people increase their vitality. So lots of very important life-changing information. So stay tuned. Welcome, Meredith. It's so good to see you, and thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Oh, Margie, it's great to be back. Thank you for having me.
The topic we're talking about today, vitality, is so important because, we're just not meant to survive here. We're meant to thrive. And I love that you have and developed this entire Vitality Society, and you've realized from all the work that you've done how important vitality is. So, why don't you tell us? Why don't we just start off? Like, what's your definition of vitality?
Adding years to life and life to years. Truly, it's not how long you live, but how well you live and how good you feel. And so, my definition is really to optimize that health span, living longer and living well.
And I always love to know the backstory. So I know you've been here before, but maybe briefly fill us in so people can understand why you love what you do and why creating this Vitality Society was so important to you and just why all the passion behind it. So why don't you share a little bit about that first?
Well, this is my 30th year working with older people. I started when I was in high school. My grandparents' longevity became a priority of mine. I loved them so much and I wanted them to be in my life for as long as possible. So I started cooking for them and they enjoyed what I was making and they were feeling good with the ingredients that I was using, which oat bran and other natural ingredients to remove the sugar and fats from their diets as much as possible. And I realized that if I can make my grandparents happy, could I make other people's grandparents happy? So I toured the state of New Jersey, cooking and demonstrating, and then compiled my recipes into a book, sold it to all the charities that I was going and touring with my grandfather. He'd come with me. We were the cook and the comedian. And then I was recognized by the United States Congress for my contribution to older people who are often overlooked and underserved. So that began so many decades ago and has become a passion and a mission that I've been on. And it's a gift to be able to do what you love, and the need for what we do is great. So this is multiple generations of serving older people. It was initially my grandparents. Now it's my parents, my dad. I'm happy to say we had a fight like hell to save his life, but he's doing great and he's turning 80 this year. And my mom is 76. And I want them to be around as long as possible to be part of my life and my daughter's life. And also, now that I'm officially turning 50 this year, I'm considered an older person by the definition of AARP. So I'm increasingly more aware, perhaps often concerned about my own vitality and longevity, and have to prioritize that as well.
It's so funny because we first met and the Vitality Society was just a thought process, it was just an idea. And this is way before COVID, and it's just incredible. I mean, I can't get over what's happened here. But it's just incredible. It's really wonderful when you do have this idea and then you bring it to fruition, and now you've changed lives because of it, which is so great. But I liked you have principles of what is included. I know when we first met way back, and I was involved way back in terms of, helping with
You
the
were one of our
happiness learn.
first teachers,
Yeah,
Margie.
I did the happiness program for it. But my question is to you, what I liked when we first met was you had these principles that were important to incorporate so that you could achieve vitality. So you want to just share those? Because I think, and when everybody's listening, I think it's important to sort of listen, is this in your life or is this something that you're missing? Because as I said, I see people who are just going through the motions. And that's so sad to me because that's not to happen. And I know your society is for people 60 and over, but this applies to people really at
Every
any age. Exactly. So why don't you share those principles?
Absolutely. So I did multiple years of research after working in the industry of senior housing for about 2 decades. And I wanted to understand what is it that people needed and wanted to stay well. And what ultimately I was able to distill all this research down into 8 guiding principles. And that really was what was the foundation of what I thought was necessary and wanted to build. So I'll go through them, but interestingly enough, I tried to make them super easy to remember. So each one is a 2-letter word. So we start with B. We really think about how you could become the best version of yourself. And it's different, right, for every person. So if you're someone who was a competitive athlete, obviously sustaining a certain level of fitness is key. But then there are many people later in life who discover the importance and significance of staying active, and so they have to define it in their own way. So it's really become the best version of yourself. And then the second one is do. Do something purposeful and meaningful. Having purpose fuels your vitality. And it's vital as you age to have something scheduled, something to look forward to, something that you can contribute to, something that you can have a legacy, leave a legacy by doing. So, really having a purpose at every stage and age of life is vitally important. And
Right.
the
Stop
third,
for a second. I just
yeah,
have to talk about purpose. We
yes,
can't say enough about purpose because what I've seen with everybody I work with that once you get involved with something bigger than you, it's big, your purpose is
yeah,
bigger than just you. Really, miracles happen. I've had so many people in my
miracle.
community, and as you know, I teach a happiness program. One of the best ways to get out of a funk or just, if you're feeling just sad and sorry for yourself, is to get involved with something. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be helping the planet. It could be helping one
Exactly.
person. Whatever purpose it could be is, I mean, it's so, so important and it's so very life changing. And, there are people that have gotten involved helping with cancer walks and this and that. And it's just such a win-win situation, and so continue, but I just wanted to say that you can't underestimate the power of purpose.
Absolutely. And what's interesting, Marty, and what I see when I give my talks at the Harvard Business School is there are quite a substantial population of people that are still working. So deriving purpose could come from paid work, but also, as you suggested, volunteerism. So, and many people straddle both. But it's the stage of life later in life where you're starting to say to yourself, what really matters to me and how do I want to invest my time? And as you said, there's an endless opportunity of places and people that need our help. And how can you contribute? And then the third one is is to be a lifelong learner. So constantly to be in a growth mindset. What can I do? What can I understand? What can I explore? As you know, people love to take up different languages before they go on vacations or take on even instruments or hobbies that they thought that they weren't so good at, but now they can cultivate that interest. So you want to continue to learn. It could be in the arts and music, whatever the case may be. And I do believe later in life, we have not just the need to learn, but the time to invest in it. And that's a real luxury, I think, for many people. And the fourth
And wait,
is
before I go on, I just wanna say
yes,
something about that. Also,
absolutely.
all the research I've done, because everybody cares about keeping their mind sharp.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
a lot of times when you're in a rut and you're just not a rut, but when you're just in the same old thing, even if it's great, if every day you can be, playing golf, where every day you can go to the health club and you're doing things, but are you really challenging your brain? And I know they found that when you do challenge your brain, that's even better for your memory and better to just keep as sharp as you can as you age. So new learning, that's what they really
Is
highly
huge.
recommend. Exactly.
And we have a community of women within Vitality Society, the women who do word games on Friday morning. And I have to tell you, so many women there have advanced degrees. And even those women are like educating us and learning new words. And we do Wordle, Quirtle, spelling bee, crossword. And it's like my brain before 11 o'clock in the morning on a Friday is just buzzing with new vocabulary. And keeping, finding connection in the exploration of new content is really valuable. You could absolutely, as you know, go to community colleges, unlimited content online through YouTube or other platforms. But there's this value that comes with not just learning, but engaging with other people during the process that adds to the joyfulness and I think meaning and substance of it all.
Yeah, and
And
it
then,
just makes it fun. We also need more fun in our
yes,
life. So whenever you can infuse fun with
yeah,
something else, fun plus learning,
we
that's
get there.
yeah, I love it.
Exactly. And the next one is go. So we did research going into this, as I said, and what turns out that people, when they have more time and more money, traveling is at the top of the list. It's actually good for your health, not just going physically, being at another place and exploring cultures and different places, but also just planning it, mentally investing in the process of researching and managing all the logistics and details. So travel has tremendous benefits, and you need to develop a certain stability, strength, and stamina to do a trip and enjoy that trip. And that's something that has become a priority, particularly coming out of COVID. There's a real desire to get out and go, and it was always there, but now even more so because people weren't able to travel for as long as they had.
So
Um,
how do you before we go on, so what do you do? We'll talk a little more about the society, but for people so you're saying for people who wanna travel, it's not like you can just decide if you've been sort of a couch potato that's just gonna do this trip. You have to prepare yourself.
So, in order to fully enjoy and benefit from a trip, there's a degree of stamina, strength, and stability that's necessary. Often, people of any age, they want to travel great distances, right? So, these trips are not easy to go on these long flights. So, the idea is also when you get there, you have a time zone adjustment. And then you have often long days. Like when my family and I went to Paris, I think I did 15,000 steps. The only time I did 15,000 steps in a day in a trip was Disney when I took my young daughter. So it requires a certain degree of intensity that you really want to not slow down, right? In many ways, you want to enjoy every day and maximize everything you see and do. And that requires a certain stability, strength, and stamina. And you always hear our what I've seen is that people go on cruises, an example, or trips where there's varying degree of intensity levels that they can select. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the trip in totality. It could be the day. So if you go on a cruise, you can opt into a very active day. Like my mom, when she goes on her cruises, likes to do that. But then, like my dad will spend the second day not touring a city. He'll be on the boat relaxing from the first day. So I think having that flexibility within a trip in totality or with day by day on an itinerary is something to look at and certainly prepare for that trip as
So are
best you
you
can
saying
within the budget.
also that, sort of like a marathon, right? You
Yes.
exercise and you get yourself
Yes.
ready, that you really beforehand prepare physically so that you do have the
Yes.
stamina and you're able to really enjoy the trip to even a better, more than you would if you were a little fatigued and can only do a certain portion of it.
That's right. And I would also add to that is that colleague of mine who happens to be a member of the community, she was traveling in Europe and was walking on cobblestone streets. And that was really tough. And she fell and she had to come home and have surgery. So it's again, it's not necessarily these situations wouldn't happen here. But when you're on your feet and you're walking in uneven surfaces for great distances and periods of time, you get tired and you don't know what you're going to see. And just building that stamina, strength, and stability is very important.
Yeah,
And
and
I'll just go
exercise is so helpful for that. Yeah.
absolutely. That's what we do. Exactly. So the next one is ha. It's beautiful. It goes so well, Margie, what you just said. It's to have fun, right? And I think travel is part of that, right? You want to enjoy life. I mean, this is the time to have fun, is to laugh and find the humor in life. In situations, I think that become as you mature are more manageable, right? So you can have more fun more often and take things perhaps less seriously at sometimes. Of course, coming with your health and other conditions and circumstances, but like having perspective comes with as you age. And that perspective, I think, helps you see the humor in life and circumstances that really keeps people happy because continuing to laugh and have a good time is a universal desire and particularly important later in life. And the next one is an important one is high. So at the core of the research that we did, what everything kind of talked about in the questions and the people that we met was about really connection. It's so vitally important that you stay connected. As you see, there was that 80-plus-year-old Harvard study that was done, and it was about happiness. And the key variable to happiness was social fitness and relationships. And so having and fostering those kinds of connections later in life are vital. They say social isolation is as deadly as smoking, many packs of cigarettes a day. And so finding that community, finding those connections, whether it be in line with something you enjoy doing, like a pickleball tournament, or a place you like to go, like Friday night services or to your churches on Sunday, like find a community to connect into. It's so good for your health. I'll just pause there before the last two, Margie, if you wanted to add anything.
Yes, yes. I know that was I love that book, The Good Life, and I love Robert Waldinger, and I just think it's
Yes.
so fascinating, that study, but what it did to me, because sometimes we get so busy, me and myself
Yes.
included. I'm so busy sometimes in my work, and I have wonderful friends and things, but sometimes you forget to call them or you just don't, it reminded me how important it is. These relationships, at the end of the day, they tested everything. They tested
Yes.
cholesterol levels. They tested every single thing, blood pressure. I mean, they did lab work. They did everything on these men from all 2 different walks of society.
Multiple generations, right?
Yeah,
Multiple
and they
generations.
did all these things, and at the end of the day, the number one thing that showed who lived longer and who were happier, but there was physical things about living long, more years to your life as well, besides more life to your years, was the relationship. The number one thing far
Amazing.
exceeded anything else. So I think it just goes to show that this piece, we can't minimize the importance of it. And, it's easy. You get busy with your life and oh, I'll call this person when, or yeah, I'll deal with this when. But by just doing that and really, really making sure that you're putting the attention on your relationships and making sure you have them for different areas is just so critical. So
Beautiful.
yeah,
And
continue.
I'll also say intergenerationally is so valuable. We hear all
Yeah.
the time that our members enjoy having friends and family members of multiple generations to keep them, at their best while they're kind of cultivating these connections. And having friends, acquaintances. I mean, also what we hear and see quite a bit is that, particularly for solo agers, those that may be living home alone or have family members, but that are quite a distance away, those connections are even more valuable, right? Is to kind of find them and foster them. And it could be family, but it really should be as broad as possible because later in life, I remember discussing this with you when I was on before, your social circles tend to contract. And so, really, the robustness of your relationships, starting with a big circle or cultivating it to remain substantial in size, is so valuable. And the last two kind of go hand in hand, but the one is OM. So you want to have peace of mind. You really want to find a way. And I know life, as you say, gets super stressful, very demanding. During the pandemic, it was quite uncertain how it was going to go. And we're going to get toilet paper. So the idea is that You really want to find a way to breathe through it, meditate through it, Tai Chi, so many different practices. Something works different for everyone. Everybody finds peacefulness. I personally like walking outside. I live on the water, and it's really lovely to have that. And then the last one is OY, OY. And that's really about at every stage of life, you're going to have worries, concerns, and challenges that you have to overcome. And it's true of any stage, right? Particularly older people, particularly situations that arise around health of yourself or someone you're caring for. And so understanding that these circumstances come up and we have to learn how to manage them as best we can. And having a good coping mechanism and a way to do that through learning and managing. I know with my dad, when he was super sick, it was super stressful. And I went right into let me learn, read, write, everything that I can, right? To manage the stress. I went right into action mode. That's the way I cope. But everybody has different ways of doing it. And so you just understand that this is part of life, these challenges and circumstances, and have good coping mechanisms and a support system in place to manage them.
And it makes such a difference for our bones, for our overall health, because, they can be the same situation, even just something as simple as you're driving in a car and there's traffic. One person is absolutely freaking out, and their stress
Yes,
hormone
my
cortisol
dad.
is going crazy. They're ready to kill the world. And what's happening is that they're reducing the ability of their bone building cells. I mean, there's an actual physical response.
Really
So many diseases and so many issues are exacerbated not by the stress, but by how you react to the stress.
beautiful.
And that's such a problem because the other person, okay, they're practicing deep breathing or they're visualizing something while they're at this traffic light and they're absolutely fine. Not one thing happens to their bodies. Actually, they're doing some good practices. So it's so important that we learn these things and we put them into our life. And I know me personally, I am not naturally relaxed. If my natural state is would be really more type A and really, but I had gotten a speeding ticket, and other people have heard the story. I've got the speeding ticket how many years ago? Must have been it was in 2010, 2011. I got a speeding ticket on the
Wow.
way to meditation. I was taking an 8-week mindfulness meditation program, and I got a speeding ticket, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me because it hit me in the head that I wasn't practicing, but I
Slow
freaked.
down,
Yeah,
right.
and so from that time, though, these practices that do allow you so when the "oi," as you say, when that comes in, you have coping mechanisms, and I think it's so important teaching people this and people figuring out what works for them is
What
just
works for
critical.
them.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I'm looking at a parking ticket that I have to pay, and I keep thinking to myself, like, one other mechanism is, like, rationalizing, right? So, I drive all around New York City, I find spots on the street, I don't have to pay the parking lots that are quite expensive, and, one day I got a parking ticket, it was, like, much more that I would wanna pay, but I'm like, "You know what? The amount of time that I saved, the amount of stress that I saved by just having the car going place to place, it's like a setback, but it's not gonna bring me down, right? I could rationalize it and say, I'm still financially ahead. And you need to be able to practice that. I also want to mention I was recently interviewed and recognized for being a servant leader. And you mentioned something, Margie, because I think you are very much as well. When you give so much to so many to improve the lives of so many people, you have to provide that great self-care for yourself, right? We have to remain full and nurtured in our own ways so that we can continue to give. And what I realized early on with Vitality Society, I mean, we lived up to our name very early on because the COVID hit like 2 months into our company existence. And what I noted was I saw so many of our members were in the mental health field. They were the therapists and other counselors that were providing care and in various forms to various people of different ages. And I had this aha moment that these are women, that they were all women who have had a life and a career of caring for other people, but now they have a moment to really take care of themselves. And it's even more important because other people need them more than ever now. And that to me was an enlightening experience to see that and then be able to integrate that into my life.
It's such a good point, and so often people think it's selfish, to do the self-care, but it's
Yes,
just the opposite. When you do good things for yourself, you show up better in the world, and
that's
then
right.
and you're happier, and you are just more productive, and that spreads to everybody around you because it truly is contagious. And
It
so it's like the least selfish thing you can do, and so important. Oftentimes we just get so busy that we forget about ourselves, but it really, really
and that
matters.
absolutely, I'm in the generation in the happiness curve of life, as you know, the trough is in the 40s and 50s. So it's rough in the trough, right? I'm thinking about my daughter. I'm often concerned about my parents for one reason or another. And then myself, as I said earlier. So in that stage of life, when you're in your 40s and 50s, you really need to develop these good practices to take care of yourself. Because what's really exciting is when you get out of the 50s, you get increasingly happier every generation and every decade. So I love that. I love that idea that life only gets better. So to look at aging with this expansive view of possibility and opportunity is really hopeful and optimistic, which is very different than the narrative that we often hear in the media about what it means to age and how I see it as an asset and an opportunity. But social media and other forms of media may lead up people to think otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I look at osteoporosis, as an opportunity to look at your life, see
Yeah.
what areas maybe you're not eating the right food or you're not exercising, all the things that build strong bones, but see where you're lacking. And then when you work on these areas, oh my gosh, like your whole life gets better. So you look back at it as a blessing in disguise. And I think that as people get older, it's just a good way to look at life. Okay, what one of those principles for vitality am I missing, and how can I improve upon that? So, couple things. I mean, you have an online community, and how are you accomplishing these different things? So, for people who, you gave us so many things. You can go register for a course. There's so many things you can do. And if you have all sorts of friends, making them a priority. But for the person that is either sort of who doesn't have that? How do you accomplish this online? Like, what have you found?
So what we have found is that technology is really not an obstacle, but an opportunity. So we serve a population that's 60 and older, predominantly women, but we have many men. And really, people have seen technology to be a great enabler of what they've set out to do and want to accomplish. So during the pandemic, we were all limited and technology became really a panacea in many ways to revive connections or sustain connections. I know so many of us saw ourselves on Zoom with groups of people that we hadn't seen in a long time. I ended up doing a Zoom with my camp friends, that I hadn't seen in decades. And it was beautiful. It was wonderful, laughing and enjoying each other. So I think what we do is our live programming is on Zoom. And that allows our members to come on early, stay late after the program, however long it is. We have 30 minutes and 45 minutes, an hour, and they get to know each other before and after the program. And what is interesting and what happens is if you go into a class of any sort on our platform or any others, you'll often find people who share your interests. So we've been doing these trivia nights on Sundays in March, and it's fascinating because you have these really extraordinary people who are like trivia masters, and they meet other people who are as good as them, and it's kind of fun to think about the answers as the team and work in a company. And that's not something you could easily do in solitude. And that's a form of fun, but this is definitely more exciting and enriching. So for us, it's really about using Zoom as the medium for those to communicate and connect, and then foster either I or my members of my team are on, and the coaches and the concierge really encourage those connections. But beautiful relationships have spawned, and I love seeing on Facebook people who've gotten to know each other and now dancing together in Florida with their partners. And it's kind of fun to say, wow, you know what? These relationships only happened because our community fostered them. And that's really powerful to think that connections can be made online and fostered offline. I think it's a beautiful combination.
And what have people said, or what have you seen? Because now it's been a while that you've had this Vitality Society. What have you seen from people who started and continue with this? What changes have you actually, have you witnessed?
Yes. Well, our members say they never knew they could feel this good. We were a lifeline, a lifesaver. I want to feel this well till I'm 120. And Margie, that's a lot of pressure. Right. Yeah. Our member, I think, who said that is 75. So we're with her. We'd love to do that with her and for her for as long as possible. So that's something that we love to hear. I believe that our members prioritize their well being. They seek out the connection. It's not simply about showing up, but a lot of the members really enjoy getting to know one another. And I believe one of the best practices that they have that we try to cultivate is to schedule what we do into their days. So we have about 17 live classes a week. We have a robust recorded library, but members will tell me that I schedule my lunches, I go to the office or my clients or, around what we do. And I think whether it's our programming or any other platform, live or online, it's a matter of having structure to your day. So having that idea of, as one of our members who's a therapist said, adding structure to her life really kept a time of such great uncertainty in the pandemic, giving her real like opportunity in her day to make time for herself and prioritize her own well-being. And I feel like, Margie, I have to do even more of that for myself. I have to really commit to it that today I'm going to do my 12,000 steps, before the dog and my daughter come home. I really have to think through it and be deliberate and purposeful because it doesn't always happen, but you have to make it happen.
Yeah, so I see this as beneficial for those people who truly can't get out. There are
That's right.
people, and there's a lot of loneliness. Loneliness is
Yep.
rampant, unfortunately. So A, for people who can't get out, but I also see it, even people who are getting out, and doing things, if there's an interest, because you have very interesting classes, if there's like another interest that you're not going to
Absolutely.
go to or, you're not going to the community college and learning travel tips or whatever it is that, it can also be something that they add to their
Absolutely.
regular routine. So I see, because it's not very expensive and there's so many things that it incorporates. You wanna just share a little bit
Yeah.
about, like, the type of classes that you have?
Absolutely. So we do fitness, wellness, and enrichment. And what we pride ourselves on is doing varying degrees of intensity of our classes. So, as an example, we have a whole seated series. So, for those who are interested in having shorter format classes with less intensity to their workout, but equally impactful, we have a whole seated series. So, you can do seated strengthening, seated yoga, seated posture, really this focus on creating strength but without creating any kind of pain or other challenges that you might have to confront. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have a robust population that really loves a great challenge. So we have bar and Pilates and yoga. And so these are the type of classes that they can come on and participate in such a beautiful, wonderful way. So it appeals to the people who have already committed to a practice and continues to help them not just um, continue their practice, but also improve their practice. So, what we really pride ourselves on is we love hearing when members are like, oh, I used to only do the seated classes, but now I've graduated, I'm doing more classes. The other piece of what we do is, again, the dimensions are cardio and mindfulness and rehabilitation and strengthening, but we have a very large enrichment program, and that's something that we really try to rotate every Sunday. And so it's generally themed in a month. So this month we're doing trivia on Sunday nights, and this is open to the community. Everybody is invited to come. You don't have to be a subscriber. But then also, like next month, we have our Distinguished Doctor series. So we'll have a neurologist talking about sleep, and we'll have a psychologist talking about brain health, and we'll have a cardiologist talking about maintaining a healthy heart, and a hematologist, oncologist talking about prevention and conquering cancer. And so the idea of having best in class content curated in such a way that we try to make it appropriate and relevant to the population we serve, I think it's really powerful. We're like that one stop shop. And you said, we're $30 a month for unlimited access to everything we do, recorded and live. And I think our members and those that choose to subscribe really benefit from participating.
Well, thanks. Well, I think for people, whoever's listening and you don't have a community and you don't have access, I think number one, realize how important it is. So, first of all, for everybody, I think the biggest thing is listen to those principles and see how you can put those into your life because they're really important. It's so important for your health and well-being. There's just no question. But this is an option. This is something that's why I wanted you to come on because I wanted people who aren't feeling the vitality or feel they can increase their vitality and, that this is an option. But the nice thing is you're giving our community a free month. So
Yes.
so you don't have to pay for it and you don't have to do anything. You could just see if this is something that might enhance your life. So I really appreciate that
Oh,
because I think that, again, for this person, if you're listening and thinking, wow, this sounds really fun and I am lonely and I'm by myself too often and don't have these things, and these things could really enliven my life. So we'll have all that information in the show notes, how you can get to that month.
absolutely.
It'll be a link, right? We'll have a link in the
Yep.
show notes that you
You'll have
can
a link.
use. And the
Yeah, and I
dates
also
is
want to mention. Oh, go ahead.
why don't you tell them the dates? So the date, since this podcast it will go until May 11th, correct? Yeah, okay, so you can
So
use it
we
until
encourage
May
you to
11th.
sign up as early as you can through May 11th. It'll be free to Margie's community, and you'll have opportunity to participate in everything that we offer. And then if you choose to subscribe with us, we're $29.99 for a month or 299 for the year. And we would love to have you. And what I'll say is that I think, Mark, what I've learned is it's not just people who are home alone. What I've seen is so interesting is there's a population of people that have community and connection everywhere, and they still cultivate more, right? It really is quite remarkable. So whether you find yourself isolated or feeling like you might move into a zone like that that's not going to be very comforting, or you're someone that's connected to a lot of communities, and we serve all types of people, and we'd be delighted to have you and get to know you.
Oh, well, it's so nice seeing what's become of it because as I said, Meredith and I first met when this was an idea, and she asked me what I thought of it.
Oh,
And I
God.
thought way back, and I thought I loved it. I loved all your little words, and I said, "Yeah, I think this is a great idea." So I'm really excited what has happened. Sort of crazy that COVID made it more of an online because initially you were in New York City, it was gonna be sort of both.
Yes,
But the yeah.
you and I were speaking when I didn't even know, what Zoom was, right? That was the platform we decided to go on, and little did I know that that would be pervasive and a lifesaver and a lifeline to so many people. So we will augment what we do with offline programming, and we're working through the model of version 2.0 to do so much for so many more people. The need is really great, and I think we during this pilot period have demonstrated something really special. And my goal is that we can reach and impact the lives of many more people. And I love the work you do, Margie. And I thank you for believing in this and me from the beginning. And it's a delight to be here. And we look forward to getting to know those that you serve.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Meredith. It's really a pleasure. Anything else before we end?
No, but you're going to come back and teach another class, right? We're working on that. Yeah, because it's interesting. I'll say this, it's like we haven't really divided by diseases or limitations, right? And we really haven't done it that way. And it's really because when I think about the chronic conditions that affect really wide populations of people really comes down to the same needs that everybody has, right? To strengthen, to move, to connect, to eat better, right? So we look at all of whether it's heart, cancer, osteoporosis, we look across these conditions and circumstances and say all that we do is supports people whatever they're dealing with. And I think there's so many common themes and we try to address those head on. So really integrating connection and movement and mindfulness and good eating. We have a whole plant-based series, which is a lot of fun, and our members have loved. So it really is, no matter what you're dealing with or may deal with, these are the guiding principles, and I think will help many people.
Yeah, that's so true because the bones aren't in isolation too. the things that you do that help your bones help your whole body.
Right.
So as you say, that all these things are just healthy living and
That's
good
right.
practices. And when you do that, and you start one at a time, you gradually add
Yeah,
them, life just becomes more miraculous, and you have more vitality. So thank you
absolutely.
so much for
Thank you.
joining me today. And I'm just so excited about what you do, and also offering this free month to my community. So
Absolutely. So look at the show notes. And if you have any questions, you can email us. The email address will be there, concierge at vitality-society.com. And Margie, we look forward to having you on our platform soon.
yeah. Oh, and if you do, make sure when you write that put happy bones so that you know that you
Yes.
get the discounts and everything. If for any
Yeah.
reason you need, if it's after the time on whatever
I
it
love
is,
this.
you make sure then that you write and just say happy bones. If you're listening to this and the month, the
Put
free
that
month
in the
is there.
subject. I think that'll
Yeah.
be helpful.
Yeah. Put that in the subject. What should they put in the subject then? Happy bones?
Happy bones.
Okay. Just put happy bones.
Yeah. And then say we'd love to get, free month.
Okay. All right. That's great. Thanks so much, Meredith.
Same
It's always a
thing.
pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Meredith as much as I did, and now have some new ways to add more vitality into your life. Because we're not just meant to get by day to day, we're here to thrive, and it's possible and it's doable. The link that Meredith talked about, that she's giving our community a free month of Vitality Society, is in the show notes. And I highly recommend taking advantage of it and seeing what classes and programs they have that really could enhance your life. Also, in real time, this coming weekend, April 8th to 9th, is the encore of my More Natural Approaches to Osteoporosis and Bone Health Summit with 55 talks and so much information on exercise, nutrition, root causes of bone loss, and just so much more. So if you weren't able to go to the summit, all the talks are available to watch for free over this weekend. That link will also be in the show notes. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.